Beauport Sleeper-McCann house is a great example of American history. The house has two owners, Henry Davis Sleeper and the McCann family. The Sleeper-McCann house was built in 1907 and represents a great example of the colonial revival period, with its scenic rooms. The house was declared as a National Historic Landmark in 2003. Henry Davis Sleeper, the founder of Beauport Sleeper-McCann House, was born in 1878 and died in 1934. Sleeper was one of the first interior designers in his time, so his house attracted many wealthy Bostonians who would summer there in Beauport. Sleeper always had people coming and going in his house, but he loved it. Due to the fact that Samuel de Champlain named the Gloucester Harbor in which Sleeper's house was settled on, lay Beauport, Sleeper decided to name his house Little Beauport. Sleeper discovered his new summer home when he was visiting his friend Piatt Andrews' Red Roof home right in Eastern Port. Sleeper also made his name in history by creating the American Field Service, or the AFS, to raise money for ambulance to transport the wounded soldiers in World War I. Sleeper also set up a school system so students could study abroad. Sleeper's house is filled with 40 different rooms. Each room has its very own different theme and color. In every room, Sleeper leaves a hint on what the theme of the next room will be. Sleeper was always expanding the size of his house, that it got to the point where his next-door neighbor built an 18-foot spite wall so that Sleeper would not build into their property. Sleeper still expanded his house right up against the wall. The Sleeper-McCann house consists of many different rooms, but the most popular are the China Trade Room, the Octagon Room, Golden Step Dining Room, the Pine Kitchen, the Kitchen, Strawberry Hill Room, and the Red Indian Room. The China Trade Room was one of the main focal points of the Beauport Sleeper-McCann house because of the cultural influence and freshness. The room is decorated with hand-painted Chinese wallpaper showing the production of porcelain, rice, and the cultivation of tea, which made the room look more like a medieval hall. This is the only room that Helena McCann changed. She was very careful while changing the room. She added a Waterford crystal chandelier, a Steinway piano, and a carved 18th century marble mantelpiece. Even today, the room still looks great. The Octagon Room is one of the most famous rooms in the house. It got its name by having 8 walls, an 8-sided table, an 8-sided rug, and 8-sided doorknobs, and 8 lamps. The point of the room is to show off Sleeper's collections and to show the friendship of France and him by having a French theme. Golden Step Dining Room got its name after an 18th century ship called the Golden Step. In the room there's an 8-foot long model of the ship sitting on a Chinese funeral bed, which picks up the serpentine element in the canvas window. The room has windows which overlook the port, making you feel like you are really in the ship's dining room. It's really cool. The Pine Kitchen's early paneling, beams, and furnishing give it the air and look of a colonial home. The cooking was all done in a giant pot which sat inside the fireplace. Only the good old New England style cooking was done for those being entertained in there. Throughout the Sleeper-McCann house, there are many American and European collections. Each piece is arranged carefully by color, light, and theme. If you look carefully, you will find 18 different George Washington models representing the birth of a new nation. You will find preserved architectural paneling from New England homes in his house, architectural structures from a church, Paul Revere remains, Indian war doors, 1920 pictures, and salvaged lights from boats. Also, you will find amethyst glass, Chinese and French English pieces of art representing his friendship. One of his most famous statues is an eagle feeding her babies, all symbolizing the birth of a new nation. The Beauport Sleeper-McCann house incorporates cultural, social, and political aspects throughout the house, making it a good example of American history.